Dina does. I'm Dina, and I know a little bit about a lot, but I want to know more. So join me on this path to self-discovery. This week on Dina Does, we are talking astrocartography, a fascinating look at astrology. And my guests today are Dom and Michelle from Cosmic Vibration. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
So happy you guys are here. This is a really exciting part of astrology that I'm just very new to, and I've been a student of astrology for some time now, so it gets me really excited. So I want to talk all about it. So I appreciate you guys making the time. I know that you are TikTok busy. That's where I found you guys on TikTok. How many followers do you have on TikTok?
I want to say it's like 115,000 or something.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Good. Yeah, you guys are doing great. So yeah, I found I was dabbling a little bit. A lot of people were like, "Oh, have you done your chart yet for astrocartography?" And I was like, "No, what's that?" Because I know all about the natal chart, and with that, to understand that's like a freeze frame of the sky the moment you were born. And I also my girlfriends are astrologists, and I also would ask them for every birthday, like, where should I be to have the best year ever? And they'll be like, oh, stay on the West Coast, or maybe you want to go here. So I knew that there was some kind of geography involved in astrology. This is a whole new way to look at your chart. First, why don't you guys explain it?
Yeah, for sure. So it's basically your natal chart overlaid onto a map to show you your most harmonious and your least harmonious locations throughout your lifetime. So it's like you said, a freeze frame, but now it's on a map. So you can kind of get a better idea of which locations might work for you in terms of moving or traveling.
Which is fascinating because, like I said, your natal chart, you look at it, but now I had a reading with you, Don, the other day that was so amazing because we specifically talked about we're the worst place for me to be. And I think that's what you said is what you want to move people is away from, where they're going to have the roughest road. And I think you mentioned it was where your Pluto line falls.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me about that. What does Pluto represent and why is that such a difficult line to live by or exist in?
Do you want to weigh in on that a little, having lived on a Pluto line as well?
Yeah, you can start off. That's fine.
Okay. So essentially, Pluto is going to be the most tumultuous line. So you can have a lot of transformation on that line in terms of, healing and trauma healing. But when you're living on the line, it's actually really detrimental in terms of financial growth, career growth, relationships. I see about, if I'm being honest, like 97 to 99% of divorces, separations take place when the coupling lives on or around Pluto, or one or both of them have Pluto as an influence. So it's just one of those lines that if you live on it, if you lived on it, you've done more healing than most people have done in their entire lifetimes. And my goal is to get you off of that line and not have you draw yourself constantly back to that line, because I do see that happening a lot when people are in healing cycles.
And ironically, mine was right near Jersey. Actually, my Chiron, so the wounded healer, we know that Chiron is like, when you really are working on healing yourself. I think Jersey was kind of sandwiched between the two, if I recall.
Yes, so you have one on one side and one on the other side. And it's like a perfect storm, because one is the most intense, being Pluto, and then the lesser intense is Chiron. So you're kind of getting the same energy with both. And we actually just moved because Michelle was on a Pluto line where we were previously living, and I had Pluto in realm of influence as well. So now we're seeing how that energy is kind of shifting.
And I spent about 10 years under the influence of Pluto. When I was in Vegas, I was a little bit farther away, but then I moved to the Phoenix area, and that's where I spent the last about 2.5 years. And one thing we see a lot with the Pluto line is people can be really drawn to the location, or they can really enjoy it for trips. But once they move there and a little bit of time passes, things really start to fall apart. And that's exactly what happened to me. I would say it was about 1.5 years in. I lost multiple jobs. I nearly lost my apartment. I lost an entire friend group. Like, things are just falling apart around me. And it seemed like there was no end in sight. So it's really harsh life lessons with Pluto.
Yeah, and I can vouch for that. Two divorces down in New Jersey, and the roughest go at things. And being a master manifester myself, you kind of likened it to you wanting you. If I'm living in that area, you want a new car, and perhaps you'll get in a car accident, maybe get hurt, but guess what? At the end, you got your new car, so
Exactly.
you'll get what you want, but there'll be some price to pay. So I love that you offer some insight into that through these charts and through these readings, because when I called you, I was actively looking. We live in California now. We have a home in Florida as well, but I'm looking to build my like forever home where I could have my chickens and my fainting goats and everything. And one of an area that I really enjoy is Sag Harbor in the Hamptons. And we were actively looking to maybe build our forever home there, and finding out that it's, in that area of Pluto and Chiron, it's probably not the best idea. And my husband knows me by now. I was like, no, it's not good for us, because listen, let's face it, he's married to a witch and I have the stronger of the energy. So my my chart kind of matters a little bit more because I'm running the energetic, stuff in here. So I was like, yeah, it doesn't work. We can't do it. Dom said no. So it's a valuable tool. Like you said, Michelle, you were having a really hard time and lost some friend groups, and just that little shift of moving locations changed everything for you. So I've always been a believer. For those of you who don't believe that, like, just look at my life for the past 45 years. And even, when I go back to New Jersey, the still hard lessons that I'm learning. So quite interesting. Another thing that you mentioned was, I was born in Brooklyn, obviously in the same area, New Jersey. And you said that was in a line where my ancestral line was, where, maybe
Was it
perhaps
past
where my
lifeline?
lineage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you said my lineage or something came from there.
Yes. So past lifelines, those are the ones we see the draw towards a lot. So Chiron I see and Pluto I see, and people are always like, let me give this a go. And I'm like, you like the line because it might feel familiar to you. And so it's generally, if you believe in reincarnation, you could have incarnated there in the past, had family who was born and raised there. And so we see a lot of people being like, oh, I really like this place, but it still comes with those lessons and that healing aspect. So it's not one that I personally would recommend anyone moving towards, but you can travel to it to do some like ancestral healing, get in touch with your roots. I think they call it like ancestral curse breaking, kind of just, being able to heal those wounds.
Yeah, which I definitely feel that I was born the 11th child for a reason. I think that's my mission here, is to break those curses and those wounds, and I'm certainly putting in the work for it. So it's very true. So I told my husband, we'll visit the Hamptons. We just won't build there. So talk about the most favorable lines. So now we know the ones you want to stay away from, the Pluto and the Chiron. What are the most favorable lines?
When I'm pulling a chart, I'm always looking for Jupiter first, because I've seen people have the most advantageous transformations on Jupiter. Then I'm looking for Sun, because it's very similar in its, auspiciousness, its prosperity, and that's what most people are looking for. Followed by Venus, which is the technical, two of them are soulmate lines, and everybody wants to know about those love lines to either strengthen existing relationships or to find a relationship or a partner. And then Mercury, which is more neutral, which can amplify specifically Sun and Jupiter. Venus is also the arts line. So a lot of artists, I find really nice alignments with a success line and then a Venus line, because Venus is a financial stabilizer, whereas Sun and Jupiter are going to be amplifiers. So personally, I've had the most success as well with Jupiter, and I tell this story all the time. I saw my brother have a very successful business in Manhattan. He was always very entrepreneurial, very lucky. And I was like, what is this that I do not have this happening? And I was like watching him just do all these amazing things, make connections overseas, travel the world. So I pulled his chart when I figured out about this. And I was like, okay, he has Jupiter descendant over New Jersey, and I had Moon descendant, which is a nightmare. So I said, I'm going to find that line, and then I'm going to move to it. And that's the line I've been living on for the past, I want to say, like 4 to 5 years.
And the
Oh my
line that
gosh.
your TikTok blew up on.
Yes, yeah, I landed several dream jobs on this. I got to work for Apple for a little bit, really loved that experience. Then my TikTok took off, and Michelle was like, "Why don't you turn this into a business?" And I was like, really? Like, I don't know if that's like plausible. And it totally was. So we wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for Michelle prompting me to do it, because I was like, I don't know if that's a thing. So it's been a
Uh,
wild ride. And that's where I met Michelle, is on TikTok, on the Jupiter.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
We also have some mirroring in our soulmate lines. So one of my soulmate lines goes through Colorado, where Dom was living when I met them. And then their soulmate line goes through where I was born in Virginia.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. I love that. So why don't we talk more about that? Is you put Dave's chart like over mine and was telling me that even if you have a really bad area for one, if the other person has it good, you can balance that energy out.
Yes, as long as it's not Pluto to an extent. So it's what I call a safety net. So if one person has a little bit more of an, advantageous placement going on, you guys can balance each other out. So for instance, in Arizona, I still had Jupiter. I mean, this is kind of a weird example because I had a slight influence on Pluto where we were living, and then Michelle had only Pluto. And so I used to joke like, okay, there's a little bit of a net, but with that double Pluto influence, it was kind of hard to make most things work. But if you can have one person that has, a bit more going on in the realm of positivity, then it's way easier to find a middle ground and a balance.
Okay, that makes total sense. It's interesting. You just mentioned Venus. So when I think of Venus, I think of beauty. I think of, feminine energy. But you mentioned something about financial with Venus.
Yes, so it's a materialistic stabilizer, essentially, because Venus rules, like you just said, all things beautiful. I always tell people to build on Jupiter and Sun if they can, and then move to Venus to stabilize what they've gained. You can see people getting a little more materialistic on Venus in that realm, but again, I think it's a nice line to put people on if that's what they're looking for.
Is it a good line to maybe perhaps hold a wedding where your Venus line is? Is that something to
Yes,
think about?
definitely. Especially if it's your Venus MC or your Venus DC, because those are our soulmate lines. So
Amazing.
it's like starting it off on a really good foot.
That's important. I emailed you last night. I'm not shy to say. I'm thinking about getting my eyes done. Like, where do I want to go, to have the best result? And it's funny because you said, California, I have my Mars, I think, in California, which gives a little bit of aggression. And my doctor was wonderful, but he did take a very aggressive approach in my nose surgery. It's much smaller than I expected it to be. Still a great nose, but just so it made such sense. So it was funny. You're like, I think Europe's your bet. And I'm like, all right, another reason to go to Europe. I'll go to France to get my eyes done. Those French women look beautiful. They're doing something right over there. But, to consider where you would not only get the best results, but to heal the fastest. You were mentioning in Florida, for me, is more of a spiritual, emotional healing, not necessarily physical healing. But to take all these into consideration, I mean, obviously, if your limb is falling off and you have to get to the hospital somewhere, like you don't have time to run your chart. But if you're doing something elective, like I was thinking of, it's an amazing tool to figure out where and what doctors to use.
100%. I like some of the best surgeons I was looking into previously are on the West Coast, and I'm always like, Pluto's ruling the West Coast. And just from the readings I've done, I'm kind of like,
things just tend to go wrong on Pluto.
Yeah.
If you don't have to gamble with that, we just don't recommend it.
Yeah. What about, I've heard a friend of mine got her reading done and they were saying that specific area for finances, she was like, well, hell no, I'm not living there and I don't even want to visit there. What if you just open your LLC in that specific location? Is that something that will work?
100%. Great question. So, a lot of people say that, like, oh, well, I have the best lines in, like, a place that I would never go to. And I say, okay, well, if you can make connections there. So let's say you're writing a book or something. If you can connect with a publisher there, you're working remotely, you can find headquarters in that area. That will give you the same influence as living there.
Wow. Okay. So you don't physically even have to be there. You just have to tap into the energy of it.
Exactly. Similar with the soulmate lines. Everyone's like, do I have to move to the soulmate line? And I'm like, no, genuinely, you just want to keep in mind where those soulmate lines lie. And then keep in mind, okay, the person was born there, previously lived there, grew up there, has connection to family there. And you can garner it that way as well.
Now, what do you do if I know you read Dave's chart and you mentioned, I think it was like Madagascar was his like ideal location. So obviously the guy who would hardly leave Jersey, that would be pretty hard to get him there. So is that a place where maybe you want to just visit to, absorb the energy of? Do you recommend, like you said, just making friends, or perhaps, I don't know, online somewhere tapping into that? Is it, how do you make the most of a location that you would never physically maybe ever even visit?
That was a good question. You can make friends with people from the area. And then the other ones that have come up, which I think are really cool, buying items from the area. So let's say you find something online and it's from that region, you can purchase it because you'll have the energy then, imbued into your space, or watching things that were shot in the area. So that way you can kind of meditatively be in the region, but you don't physically have to be in the region, whether it's a movie or even a YouTube video, something in that realm.
Oh, I
And I
love
would
that.
say like incorporating that with some kind of manifestation routine would probably be really beneficial.
Okay. So I don't know where Egypt was. I'm having this big pull to go to Egypt lately. I don't know what that represented in my chart, but I also, and I was like, fuck it, if I can't get there, I went on Etsy and I was looking at shops from Egypt and what they offer. So even intuitively, I was like, for now, that's the energy of it is going to be good enough. And I bought some little Isis statues and other little deities that I could put on my altar. So I see, that's when it's on the right track, when the expert tells you something you're already doing.
On point.
Yeah. So does it affect your chart for the year? Let's say like this year, I celebrated my birthday in South Africa, my 50th birthday. So I know that, my friend Ophi, who's an amazing astrologist, she would tell me like, okay, if you want a better year financially, celebrate your birthday here, celebrate like reasonable locations, like if you're going to be either in Florida or California, maybe go to Florida and then you'll have a better year financially or something. Does that work with this, that if you start your, next trip around the sun in that particular location, will you carry the energy of it with you for the entire year, or does it not work like that?
I've never even thought of that before, if I'm being honest. I mean, it's worth experimenting with. Now I'm going to be planning trips based on that because I've never thought of that. But I really like that concept. I personally don't know on that level, but I would love to try it and then get back to you and see kind of how it shakes out. And there is something called a transitory astrocartography chart, where essentially it follows the months and the weeks, similar to your transit astrology chart. It just shifts so quickly that a lot of people are like, okay, well, should we pull the transit chart? And I'm like, well, within a week, that line is going to be off where you are and you're going to be experiencing another line, which is why we go with the natal based charts. But I would be so curious to know if that's a thing, and we should give it a shot and find out.
Yeah, that's a really intriguing concept.
Oh, good. Well, you guys can test it out for us then. It's funny. I was born at 1:32 a.m. in Brooklyn, New York. But in California, my birthday would be March 6th, because it wasn't quite March 7th yet. So now that I live in California, does that energy change as far as, living here now versus being born there, or my natal chart is my natal chart?
That one, the time stick. Yeah. And however, I had that question when I started too. I was like, oh no, like how are we according for these time changes and locational shifts? Because a lot of people will have been born in different countries, different states. But that's why I've looked into a lot of softwares and programs because I wanted to find the best one. And there's just something about Astro Travel where it's really comprehensive and shifts the time correctly and takes everything into account. You don't have to disseminate the complete natal chart against it, which confuses a lot of people. So it's a great advanced user tool, but it's a fantastic beginner user tool. Kind of just has everything that you need in one space. So I don't know if in the future we'll see other calculators come out, but yeah, I think, across the board, depends on the software you're using to answer the full question. But with AstroClick, you can completely just put in your natal chart information and it'll transition it accurately.
Yeah, I was in a full-on panic. I don't know how long ago it was. They were saying that all the signs were shifting and I wasn't going to be a Pisces anymore. I was like, wait. I don't know how to be an Aries or an Aquarius. I got really nervous, but I even think with that shift, do you remember what I'm talking about? It was not too long now ago. NASA was like, oh, we fucked up. This is what it really is.
I've been obsessed with that because there's the 13-month theory, the 13 sign theory, and so there's 13, and then there's also the fact that Vedic sidereal astrology shifts your sign. So it's you can be one sign in one chart, and I do that with the natal chart readings. You'll see one sun sign, moon sign, rising sign, and then the next chart they've got a completely different chart, and people are always mind boggled, how am I both? And then you throw in 13 sign, and it's completely overwhelming because now, for instance, I have 3 different sun signs in all different types. And I'm like, okay, well, which one then?
Oh my God, my brain hurts just talking about that. It's just, astrology has so many layers to begin with. When you throw in all of that, it could really just send you into a tailspin. But when you look, you can't, my husband, when he first met me, he just thought I was the biggest wacko introducing him to all that stuff. And now he's he runs this amazing, very successful company with all these big CEOs under, and they ask me, when's the best to do this? Dina, can you check the chart and see when the best we should be doing this? And I love it because for centuries we've relied on astrology, doctors and royalty and everything. And now it's becoming mainstream again where it's respected. It's not something so woohoo and crazy. It's people are understanding that you can't deny it. You literally can't deny it. You can't deny the pandemic, how it's happened before when the stars were aligned at another time in our lifetime, and all of those synchronicities. And it's real. Astrology is real. And I love that you're offering these readings. Do you have a site? Do you offer anything other than readings? Do you have something where you could punch in your chart and take a look on your own if you have a little bit of astrology background, or is it strictly reading based?
So the Linktree has some tools you can utilize in terms of breaking down your chart. There's a key we offer that will disseminate the lines you're looking for. So if you're looking for financial success or love, but we direct everybody on our TikTok lives and in general to AstroClick Travel, which is completely free, to pull up their charts. And then I also, during our lives, kind of treat them all like a workshop. So if you hop into a live and you want to pull up your chart and follow along and try to, find where those lines are for you on the map, that's a thing that we do daily, honestly. The other thing is you can, of course, on the Linktree, book those readings and natal chart readings and what have you. And we were doing workshops for a while. So I'm all about teaching and making it accessible to people in a multitude of different ways. So from the lives to the workshops to the readings, just making sure people, and eventually we do want to offer coaching sessions where other people will be one-on-one coached for several hours to then turn it into a business themselves. That way they're not going off the workshops solely, just because the workshops were a few hours, but I was getting nervous with that they weren't comprehensive enough to then shift it into a business format. And I don't want people being directed to the wrong places. So that was actually Michelle's idea, having a one-on-one program where we can make sure someone's in a good place and then they can spin it and turn it into whatever type of business they'd like to.
And we are moving away from the live workshops. We're trying to move into downloadable content. So instead of people having to wait for time to pass before they can get into a workshop and learn, they'll be able to download a series of videos that teaches different aspects of astrocartography. So that's not something that we've launched yet, but it is something that we are working on. And then in terms of the readings, I did want to mention too, we offer several different types. So there's the singular reading that you did. We also do a partner reading, and that can be like a romantic partner, that can be a family member, that can be a child. It can be literally anybody that you want to have a chart run with. And then we have 3 to 4 person family readings and 5 to 6 person family readings. So there's a variety of options.
I love that. I mean, it's such an amazing tool, and I learned so much from our reading together. And I do want to do another one that's kind of honing into now where I'm looking to build my dream home. And also it has to be compatible with my husband too. So certain places that we are in our life and our careers, to make sure it all makes sense. And of course, my daughter, I'm going to gift her with a reading from you guys because, 20s are hard enough to figure shit out. When you have a little bit more in your toolbox to help you figure out where you're supposed to be. She lives in West Hollywood now, but she grew up in New Jersey and went to college in New York and is grateful to be in California, but she's in the middle of finding, her purpose and her stuff. So this is an amazing tool for any part, anywhere you are in your life, whether you're just starting out, coupling, is there something that should show you if you do a couples chart that should tell you to run? Like if you're with someone who just doesn't jive with the locations for each other. Have you ever seen that?
I see it all the time.
Oh gosh.
And then I don't know how to quite word it because, it's just the one thing I'll see a lot is similar to the soulmate lines. I'll see Pluto in the area where the person met their partner. The other thing I'll sometimes see is Mars, but that just tells me the connection's more physically based and there's not really much else to it, which I don't think is a good basis for long-term, since most people are looking for long-term. They're looking for that marriage, love connection. So the other thing I'll see that's really hard to break down to people, and it doesn't mean they're doomed by any means, but I'm just like, is if every single soulmate line is being followed around by Pluto. That essentially means they've incarnated to learn some lesson about love and how to have like a fulfilling relationship and heal past wounds around love. And so then we have to kind of shift to one side of the line to avoid the Pluto line, or find another minor line to go based off of. So that way I'm not just like, oh, you can't go anywhere, there's no love for you, because that's that's not how we're trying to run the chart.
Enjoy your lonely life.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's amazing. So Jupiter, planet of expansion, luck. That's the one we want to look. Sun, obviously, is like you said. Want to say we're from Pluto, Chiron. What other lines, if you had to say, if someone's doing their own chart, what is the one other, let's say you've got the 4 ones to look at. What is that last one that you really want to pay attention to?
Mercury. So Sun, Jupiter, Venus, Mercury. Mercury, because although it is neutral, a lot of people are looking for community or social connections or to feel understood on an intellectual level. And Mercury will facilitate that. It will make them feel seen and understood and heard. A lot of people are looking to write books. So that's the book writing line. And if I can find any of those in combination, those are the ones I'll definitely pull people towards, especially because Jupiter and Sun, so the fire sign lines, everyone wants to know about health. Where is my health going to be the best? Those are your heavy hitters for that. If we can put you on, any type of fire line combination or fire sign line with a Venus line, that's going to be a beautiful balance to having some energy, to feeling good, and to be, being able to do what you need to do. I mean, it's not a cure-all by any means, but it will help.
Yeah, Pluto has actually been shown to weaken your immune system. So especially people who are immunocompromised, we're like, you got to get off Pluto. Any of the water sign lines, in fact, are not great for that, but Pluto especially.
We can both attest to that.
Yes.
You guys should do like a little handbook and like where you can kind of lay over your chart somehow, because now I'm so curious because I have it in the audio Zoom that we did. But now I want to like just reference it. Okay, health, this is, especially so we'll talk more about maybe how you can give me a little cheat sheet to reference.
We have our Astrocartography key that's in our link tree, and that's basically what it is.
Ooh, okay.
It tells you, like, if you're looking for this, go to this line. It goes over what all the planets represent, and like the main things that you're going to find, like kind of no matter the position. But then it goes into specifics too, like retirement lines. Where are those? Which ones are those? Real estate lines. So it's it's not like overly complicated or complex because it's designed for beginner users, but it is really helpful, and it goes over a lot of those.
Oh, I love that because I'm, a little tech challenged. I really need to and I like tactile things I can see. It was amazing learning from you and being in that conversation. I want to dive in even more. And that's why I invited you to come on this podcast, because I think it's such an important tool. And here I was about to build a dream home in somewhere where I would have more stress and hard times with, and that matters. I'm so tapped into, the energies of the universe. So someone like me, that would really affect me because I'm in tune with it. Maybe some people who are not astrology's bullshit or whatever. I mean, they'll learn the hard way that it's, it's not, but when you're really in tune with it, I think it happens faster and harder and quicker, when you're in tune with the energy. So I'm like, no, see you, Hamptons. I'll just visit you once in a while. Well, thank you so much for being on. I hope to have you on from time to time so we could learn more. Maya's here taking notes. We're going to put everything so you are a click away, and we can have people reach out for readings and to learn more about themselves and their charts. And I will certainly be in touch and would love to do a family reading again. Maya, do you have any more questions? Because I feel like we were discussing what kind of questions do we ask when it's such a visual thing, but I think we covered a lot of the really important parts. Do you guys think we did?
I would say so.
Maya, do you have any questions?
I was just curious about the moon.
Oh, the
What that
moon.
means.
She was asking about the moon placement and what that means.
I grew up on Moon in New Jersey.
But a specific moon line, moon descendant, which I would say that's one of the biggest lines that we look for to not put people on. And you want to speak a little bit on your experience with that?
I think so Moon descendant in particular is a relationship wrecker. Moon in general being water oriented. I know there's some people say, oh, some people do better with moon. In my experience, they don't, especially if you're very empathetic and compassionate. That's going to amplify the energy in all circumstances. It amplifies intuition. So I think it makes people tap into other people's emotions a little bit too much, and it keeps them in their own head a little bit too much on an emotional level. And it's hard to really get outside of that realm. Moon also can affect business in that way, because if you think of it, it's like water, it ebbs and flows. So it's not like Pluto where it's intense, but you'll still get these highs and lows with moon. And so I don't like to put people on and around it. There is one moon sign line that is the conception, fertility, raising a family line, and another one where you can retire and raise a family on. So those are the two favorites of mine, which moon ascendant and moon IC, but moon descendant, moon MC, those are just hard nosed for me. I tell people, if you want to travel there for a little bit of emotional introspection, you could totally do that. Or if it's got a few other lines around it, not just one to balance it out, then it's okay. Or a relaxing trip spot. But in my experience on moon descendant, nothing stayed static. And because in the descendant, it's affecting relationships, friendships, family, stuff. It was always like a roller coaster, very up and down and tumultuous until I got off the line. I was like, oh, okay, it's not me. It was genuinely the location. It was really mind blowing, honestly.
What is the IC and the MC? What does that stand for? And for those who don't know anything about astrology.
Yeah. So MC is sense of self and career. The line will then affect those aspects. So it's taking your house positions and it's translating them into positions, which is why I love Astro Click Travel. So MC, sense of self, career, ascendant, how people view you, how you come off, how you appear to others. I see they're kind of like karmic placements. I call them things unseen, things hidden. So generally they all have some type of spiritual aspect or healing work to do on some level or some type of introspection. And then DC is how you're going to relate to other people, but predominantly your partner and the people closest to you.
Okay, interesting. So those are very important. Other than just looking at the Pluto lines and everything else, you have to see where the MC and the IC and everything is.
100%. because certain planets, a very specific line position will be beneficial, but others won't be. So the position is absolutely crucial.
Okay. I mean, that's why I recommend, even if you're going to go and do what you said, like where you can break it down, to have a reading, because you're so smart. I love smart people because I'm not book smart. I'm street smart. I'm from Brooklyn. So I can like handle myself in a, street fight. But I just learned so much from people like you, where you're just really intelligent. And I appreciate like all of these facts that I could download and use as tools. So I, again, appreciate your talents and appreciate you sharing it with us. And get a reading. Best $111 I ever spent. Your prices are so reasonable. You should probably raise them. Maybe after this, keep it the same for us who's listening on here. Tina does listeners, but it really is an amazing tool at a very reasonable price. So I wish you so much success, and you don't even need it because you're on your Jupiter line. So that's just going to come to you, right?
Thank you. You're not
Anything-
the first person too to say that about the prices. We've raised them a little bit, and then we're always like, oh, but what if people can't afford it? So then we like, but
that's a huge goal of ours, is to make it make it accessible, because we don't want this information to feel like it's gate kept. If you only have a certain amount of money, you can get to it. So that's something that we really strive for. So it's kind of a balance of not undervaluing ourselves, but also keeping it accessible to people.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I make my little magic kits and everyone's like, you can get like triple that. And I'm like, yeah, but I want everyone to tap into their magic. So it's, the only thing that's
check that out.
Yeah, me too.
I just want to say also, for you were saying about you being available to everyone. The first time I saw you on TikTok, as you were speaking, I was taking screenshots of where you were talking about, and then I'd go check on my chart. So I was learning from just that. So you offering those free readings, that you do on TikTok. I think, again, you do so many of them where you'll be like, we'll be back on tomorrow. I'm like, my God, that's so great. But even if you do just one of those once in a while, it is very valuable information that you can learn from your own chart. So you're giving, and you're giving to humanity in more ways than just your reading. So we appreciate that.
Thank you. That means a lot.
I think this is a good base to introduce people who are listening or watching that maybe didn't know this tool existed, and get your readings now, because prices will go up. And we'll have you on again. Thank you so much for your time today, and we'll see you soon. I will be bothering you via email soon.
Can't wait. And thank you for having us. We appreciate you.
Yes, thank you so
Super
much.
grateful.
Of course. Have a great day, guys. Bye.